Racing League Chinese Grand Prix with the No Assist Championship. My name is Gareth, otherwise known as Captain Stiff, and I welcome you here to a race between 10 of the fastest drivers we have here in IRL. So should be an absolute barnstormer for the guys here today. The Chinese Grand Prix made up of 16 turns over a clockwise course of 5.45 kilometers. That's 3.38 miles. The guys here will be making about 51 gear changes per lap with a 380 meter run from T1 down to the first corner. They'll be running about full throttle for about 55% of the lap, so quite a decent percentage of the lap will be run at full throttle. It's actually the longest straight in Formula One. It's as known as a pure straight. Baku is slightly longer because it has got that kink in it. It's not quite as long. So there's a longest straight of about 3/4 of a mile. So the cars will kind of bounce off the limiter roughly about 211, 212 miles an hour. So one of the fastest straights on the F1 calendar, up there with Monza and Baku. So guys will be travelling at the absolute limit, going down that fast DRS straight towards the end of the lap. So we'll just quickly set up here. So as you can see, we have got some guys returning from last week that haven't been in. So Nicky 9095 returns after his race out last week, and also we do have the return of Gamer the Best, who's making his first appearance in the league after around, I think it's 4 races out. His last appearance was in Brazil in the second round of the season, and there he came second after he trying to close down Betrayer, who took the win, but he became a prolifically quick driver, and we've been looking forward to having him back in the lobby, because he's definitely going to put, well, I believe he's in the Sauber tonight, but he's going to definitely put a couple of cats and monster pigeons and see if he can ruffle a few feathers tonight with some of his electric pace that he's shown over the few races that we've seen him. Now Shanghai, it's first raced in 2 for the 1999 season, but they didn't get the correct funding for the track, and it moved to the £500 million facility that it is now in Shanghai. Located just on the outskirts of Shanghai near the airport, and the circuit layout is actually based on the word Shang, which means to ascend in Chinese dialect. So it's actually on the character in the Chinese alphabet, so roughly based off that. It's compromised over some long straights and some long sweeping corners, or I say sweeping, more of a sort of very like elongated corners with two 270 degree turns. So the drivers will find that they can find themselves with quite a bit of understeer going around with such long corners. So but the benefits of that is that we do see quite a lot of overtaking due to the fact we have got 2 long DRS straights, the one being on the start finish line and the second going into the hairpin towards the end of the lap in sector 3. So lots of overtaking opportunities throughout the race. So we should see, with some of the fastest drivers, like I said, some of the fastest drivers in IRL tonight, we should see some absolutely mega battles, especially going into lap 1, as we are following Joel out on circuit at the moment in the Force India. Of course, last week he took an absolutely dominant victory in Silverstone. We'll see tonight if he's still got the pace, as Highmakers has left the session, should be joining hopefully. But Joel, yes, did take an absolutely dominant win in Silverstone last week. Stifler 1980, who's taken 3 consecutive podiums in the last 3 races with 2 consecutive second places, so definitely a man to look out for within the race. He seems to be well on form at the moment. It's all about putting that work to good use and making these second places wins. So that's his next step that he's got to achieve, and something he's definitely going to be looking at doing well into this season. There's people in the league, of course we've got Mero D2 and Craig, who are fast drivers in their own right, but this season haven't seemed to have kind of locked it up, and they haven't seen, as Joel sets a bank lap of 135.9 on the super soft tyres, so Nice banker lap there as we go back out on, and we'll have a look at Mystic Man 22, who of course had that debut win in Monza, as he comes across the start finish line and goes fastest with a 1:35.1, so 8/10 of a second over Joel. As we see the other times coming in, so Stifler 1980 with a 1:35.996, so 0.08 of a second slower than Joel at the moment. So it's Craig and Merrill that are looking kind of picking up some points over, especially in this race. They're going to want to start finishing higher up the grid than what they have been so far. It's not quite been the season that they've both wanted, but the battle for the top at the moment is absolutely cracking. So we do have a yellow in sector 2. It's gone briefly. It looked like it might have been Joel who was slow coming out of the corner there, but with Betrayer currently leading the way at the top of the standings, only on race wins compared to Chilnullian, who's in second place, but purely on the fact that Betrayer has 2 race wins and Chil only has 1. But with Nicky 9095, who lost points last week with the fact that he missed the race in Silverstone, dropping down to 3rd place, but it's Stifler 1980 who's actually moved himself up into 4th position, and they're all within 4 points for the lead of the title. So, but with the introduction of Mystic Man 22 after his race win, and then obviously Gamer the Best, who puts in a 35.4, so puts him on the provisional front row at the moment. So as the guys all out there setting their banker lap times, as we'll see Gamer coming into the hairpin at the end of the lap, and he's coming home, and you'll see him just sweep round to the left hand corner as Betrayer looks like he's bailed out of that lap, so hasn't set a provisional lap so far. So Betrayer once again will be we have seen quite a few times want to or not set a lap time so far apart from Betrayer in the Force India tonight, so has been running in the Red Bull for a couple of races, moves into the Force India for this week. Force India, well known for its good straight line speed, so should be put to good use, especially around this straight that Craig's moving on to now. Good evening, Mike. Nice to see you. Glad you got home in time to see the race. It should be a cracking one tonight. Hopefully we should see you on the grid soon. It'd be nice to have you back with the guys in the lobby. As Craig comes down to the hairpin, brakes nice and tight, keeps it just kisses the apex of the corner. And we'll see, does he bail out of that lap or does he keep going? He's bailed out of that lap, so Craig as Betrayer, both pulling out of their first initial laps, will look to set a time in the next session. So the problem for these guys tonight is that they will, well, unless they decide not to set a time, is they will all be starting on the tyres that they set this time on. So the fastest time, of course, you set your, or the tyres you set your fastest time on is the ones that you start on in the race. So the guys all at the moment that have set 1 to 8 have all set their times on the super soft tyres. So it looks like they will be the ones, or they most likely will be setting times on the super soft tyres and starting on those super soft tyres. China can be known for a potential. You can do a 1-stop, but a 2-stop can be slightly more effective. But it all depends on the conditions in the race, whether it's a colder track surface or whether it's going to be a warm session. So if we get sun, we might get a decent time for the guys on the super softs. So we've just had the report in for the race, and we are expecting light rain for the race. So was Mero D2 retires? Is that in the pit lane? It's not. Unfortunately, it's on, or it looks like the entry to the pit lane, that he's gone long into the pit lane and put it into the wall. So a bit embarrassing there for Mero D2, as he's done what Lewis Hamilton did back in 2000 and I want to say 2008, where he put it into the gravel trap in the entrance to the pit lane. As we go back out on track, and Tumas 53, who just about keeps around, comes into the pit lane. So most likely won't have enough time to set another time, so gets it slowed down as we go back out. And it's Stifler 1980 who currently on the banker times in 5th place at the moment with a 35.9, so we'll be looking to take a couple of tenths off that and challenging the guys up towards the front. Now the benefit for Mero there is he has set a relatively quick time to put him on the front row at the moment. So the guys will have to make up so Joel's going to have to make up well over half a second to jump Mero. So all depends on how hard these guys are pushing on their banker time. Now pole position here can be pretty beneficial to the guys, as it is on the clean side of the circuit, on the left hand side, but you do find that it's whoever gets the better start running down who gets the benefit of getting that tighter line sweeping into turn 1, which is one of the two 270-degree turns on the circuit. So like I said, it's a track that leans itself to understeer with the amount of long turns that there are on the circuit. So it's all about making sure you've got the right grip set up, the right balance set up. So setups here can be, well, crucial. And it's these guys here, are they deciding to run a dry setup and then hope that they can push hard or push a little bit harder during the light rain? Or do they decide to run a little bit slower and set a wet setup and hope to get a little bit more grip when it comes to race? Yeah, so as you say, Mike, we do always get some pretty decent races, and we are expecting throughout the week not only no assists but also the Performance League F1, F2 and F3. There's a lot of talk been going on in the forums and in the lobbies that guys are looking forward to this race. It's actually one of my favourite races on the calendar. I find it just quite an interesting track to get right. It's one of those tracks that you can kind of make up a lot of time in a couple of places, and yeah, we should be in store for what should be a very interesting race with pretty much all of the big hitters in the league. Now what you will see is, if these guys have really got a lap switched on, you'll see them going, well, almost full pace into turn 1 and going, if they can keep it 8th gear, maybe top end of 7th gear, going right into the entry of turn 1 and then brake nice and hard but without locking up the brakes and without loose control, it should be that's when you see a driver who's really locked themselves in for a decent lap. So the corner entry essentially for turn 1 can be around 186 miles an hour. That's 300 kilometers an hour. So the cars just do around 31 mile an hour at the apex of the corner at turn 2. So you have to take off a lot of speed and quite a small amount of distance. As we see at the moment, no one has made any moves so far. They all seem to be out on their quick laps with the timer has switched down to 0, so the checkered flag is out, and we're now just waiting for the laps to come in as Mystic Man improves his time with a 35.1. Takes a couple of hundredths of a second off of his time. Yeah, it's Gamer coming down the long straight towards the end of the lap, coming into the DRS zone now. Hit 150. Oh, it's braking very late as he just gets beyond the 100 yard board there. And Supermero, he's going to Gamer to best, he's going to sweep round in the Sauber. DRS is going to open again, he's going to come across the line. What does he do? He doesn't improve his time. It's a 35.3 is his best time so far as Joel pits from 4th position. It's Nicky 9095 who was early season, he was starting to run away with some of the races. Does he improve? He sweeps around the last corner, kisses the apex, opens the DRS, goes across the line, and Nicky does not improve, stays 5th with a 135.7. Don't believe there's Tumis still out on track. He's just crossing the line now, and he does move up to 5th place. So he knocks Nicky and Stifler down. So it's Tumis moving up from 7th place into 5th in the Sauber. So decent result there for Tumis in the Sauber. Yeah, as you say, Mike, Joel, another impressive qualifying result there from Joel. Actually, Mero D2, who I found is putting a decent lap there with a 35.3. So really putting himself up there. So by the looks of it, that is all of your finishes or all of your positions sorted for the race. So couple more stats about the circuit, as I know everyone loves a bit of trivia. So it's previous years it's actually been a high downforce track, but due to the 2017 regulations, it actually encourages the teams to run less downforce to maximise the straight line speed going along the 1.17 kilometre back straight, especially if the DRS opened, because you'll see the guys bouncing off the rev limiter as they get down there. Your tyre choices, well, for this session was the most likely the red super soft tyres, but for the race, if it's going to be light rain, I think you'll see a lot of guys running in the green intermediate tyres. We'll see if the drying line appears. If the rain sort of starts to fade off towards the end of the race, if there's a dry period, we'll see guys moving on to something like a medium tyre, which kind of tends to lend itself to running a little bit nicer in colder conditions. So as you can see, there is your results for qualifying, as Mystic Man 22 takes pole position in the Haas with 1:35.1. So with Mero D2 in second, Gamer the Best in third, Joel in fourth, Tumas in fifth, Nicky sixth, Stifler seventh, Chilnilly in eighth, and Betrayer and Craig in ninth and 10th without setting a time. Yeah, unfortunately, Malk is missing tonight. He didn't get back in time, so we do wish Malk joins us next week. It was a shame. He's certainly would be looking at picking up some points here after a couple of definitely not ideal results for Malk over the European trip of Silverstone and Monza for him after finishing out of the points both times. So yeah, hopefully we'll get Malk back in the grid or back on the grid for next time out. So it should be quite an interesting session here. As you can see, the rain is quite heavy at the moment, so it doesn't quite look full wet. But does anyone decide that they maybe try and start on a full wet and maybe get 1 or 2 laps, see if they can absolutely blitz it and get a bit of a gap and then come in and move on to those mediums if the rain starts to fade? But does look like it might be intermediate conditions for a couple of guys, especially if they're expecting it to slow down as the race, or the rain to fade as the race goes on. So of course, guys, feel free to send in your predictions, your comments, and everything throughout the race. I'm more than happy to have all of you engaging in the chat. It's great to have you all on board. It's great to have people watching the races. So feel free to share this with anyone else all on your social media, like follow us on Invictus RL on Twitter, because that's always the best place to get any info you can for any of our socials and any of our announcements about the leagues as we go straight into the race. So no warm-up lap, no formation lap, we're going straight into the race with 5 lights, and they are out, and the race begins in China as guys get a good getaway. As we see one move already on the back, we've lost a Force India and a Renault. That seems to be Craig and Betrayer at the back. As we see a couple of cars already spinning with the Haas of Mystic Man has already gone off wide as he looks like he's going to spin the car as well. Just about. The guys are really struggling to keep it in a straight line, as it was a nightmare start there for Betrayer and Craig at the back, who both started 9th and 10th. Didn't get it locked up as Betrayer retires from the session, unfortunately, before the first corner has even started. So absolutely nightmare there for him, as Mero D2 leads the guys away in his Red Bull already with a pretty decent lead of 1.3 seconds over Joel, who's made a nice start, moved up into second place. As it's Mystic Man 22 who really lost out there and has dropped down to 6th position. As we'll move on board here with the guy in second place, that's Joel V520 in the Force India. As you see here with the position changes, it is Mero that's moved up 1 position into first. Joel's moved up from 4th into second. Tumas moves up from 5th into 4th. Chilnillian has made a decent start from 8th into 5th, but it's Mystic Man 22, as you see there, absolute nightmare start for him, running wide at the first and second corner. That's upset him. As we see him getting very twitchy, he's going to turn the car around there, and he does. Does he keep it out of the wall? Just about. And so Mystic Man, he's going to drop the position to Stifler. Or was it? Or was it Stifler? Sorry, was it Stifler that lost it back there? It may have been Stifler 1980 that lost it coming into the final corner. As Joel has really crept up to the back of Mero on this lap so far. So the guys here, all running wide. They're all following each other's line, so it's putting them off. So you'll see there, the guys really bunched up from this first lap. It's all about who's going to be most careful going into this corner. It's the first time the guys would have done this first corner at full speed. Do they get it slowed down? Just about. Joel just keeps that front wing from touching the rear end of the Red Bull as he's starting to really put the pressure on Mero. So the guys coming around here, as we'll see. Yeah, everyone has gone for the intermediate tyres. Craig is coming in for a pit. That's obviously to change that front wing that he damaged with this contact into the wall on the start. So either one of Betrayer or Craig didn't manage to see which one it was. Got a lot of wheel spin off the start, but both into the wall. So really, unless an absolute miracle occurs, I believe Craig is going to find it an absolute nightmare to get to the end. See, Mero getting very twitchy coming out of that corner there as they come up to the slow left 270 degree turn leading on to the long straight. Of course, no DRS with the rain as Joel just about keeps it in a straight line. And it's Gamer de Best in the Sauber just behind him, so who's just within about a second at the moment. So as we see here, Joel getting it slowed down as it looked like Tumas at the back has run wide and he's dropped positions. It's Chill that makes it up. Chill jumps Tumas and moves up into fourth position. Tumas just out braking himself slightly there as he runs wide again. So Mero sets the fastest lap with a 1:54.1, so that was to be expected unless some of the guys behind him were running a little bit faster. But in this rain, and especially following the guys in front, it seems like it might be a case of follow the leader. Stifler 1980, who's a little bit further back from the guy, so he is there 15 seconds down on the leader. As we'll see here, interval between guys as we move up to Mero and Joel, and as Joel looks to the inside of Mero for the lead and he takes it. Is that going to allow Gamer? Gamer just about keeps himself from getting into the back of Mero. Mero didn't really have anything to answer for when it came to Joel, who just neatly tucked it up the inside, going into the right-hander. Now, what can Gamer de Best do, who's sitting behind these two? And we know Gamer is very impressive, very quick driver, so is he just sitting there just kind of biding his time as it gets a little bit twitchy as he comes out of the left-hander as they slow it down? Looks like Mero might have just clipped the back end of the force injury there as he runs wide, and it does look like Mero might have front left wing damage. So in the wet, that's not what you want to see at all. Absolute nightmare there for Mero if he has, by the looks of it, damaged his front or one of the end plates of his front wing, because in the rain you need as much of that downforce, as much of that grip as possible. As we'll go down to Chill, who's looking at the back of Tumas. Is he going to make the move down into the hairpin? No, he doesn't. So the guys staying quite tentative, not wanting to make any sort of late lunges on anyone. They know that damage here can essentially end your race, as Craig has unfortunately found out, as it's Joel, the leader, who sets the fastest lap with 1:53.8, as the guys still quite close up to each other. So from first position down to sixth position is only split by around 3.5 seconds, as we see Mystic Man dive up the inside of Chill, moving in through turn 1, but Chill will have the inside going into turn 2 and 3. Now, does he take it back, or did Mystic keep it? They're still going to run side by side going down, as Mystic gets the move done nicely. So well done there from Mystic. He's starting to claw his way back after his excursion off into the runoff area on lap 1, as Tumas looks to the outside of Mero's. Mero's already been jumped by Gamer de Best. We missed that one here, so Mero now coming under attack from the sister Sauber of Tumas 53 in his second race from Invictus. So what Mero's doing now is got quite a decent start, but it seems to be holding up some of the drivers at the moment. So starting to see a four-car battle at the moment for third position. So as you see, Joel and Gamer the Best, or Joel stretching out a 1 second lead, which is slowly coming down to Gamer, but Gamer has pulled out a 3 second lead on Mero already after making the move earlier on this lap. Oh, as you see there, Chilnillian in the McLaren getting all out of shape coming out of that corner. He's just about held it as the guys move down. Of course, they will barely be able to see anything in the spray going down into the hairpin. So finding your braking point is, as Mero runs a little, gets a little bit of a wiggle on coming out the corner. That's going to give Tumas a little bit more impetus to overtake him going into turn one, as Tumas runs a little bit wide coming out of the last corner. He's lost the position to Mystic Man 22, who's moved up into 4th position. So a little bit of a mistake there for Tumas, ran wide, and that gave Mystic the opportunity to coming back up ahead of him. As Chill's going to start having a look up the inside of him going in, but Tumas closes the door. But it is Mero that's still the blockade for these guys, and so Mero still holding on to 3rd place, but you feel that it might come under threat pretty quickly, and he might find himself, as soon as he's lost 1 place, he might start losing a whole load more. Oh, is Mero getting out of shape again, as you can see just how tricky it is for these guys to keep it, putting the power on. You can see the back end just stepping out, so it's all about feathering that throttle and just making sure you don't spin the car around. And as you saw, some of the guys already just having a little bit of trouble coming out of some of the slower corners, just getting the power down a little bit early, and just especially this corner here, you can find it quite tricky, as what you don't want to do in this sort of weather is touch any of the curbing too. You don't want to get too many wheels on that curbing, as we'll go up to the top. As I didn't see that Game of the Best is actually caught up right up to the back of Joel, so Joel must have made a mistake somewhere around the lap, because Gamer is caught right up to the back of him, is now 0.7 of a second behind, will be in the slipstream going down the long straight into the hairpin at turn 14. So turn 14 here, the hairpin, followed by turn 15, this slight kink right-hander here, as they go into the final corner at turn 16, as Tumas is 0.1 of a second behind Mystic at the moment. We'll go back down there and see, is anything happen from there? No, they're still all close together. It's Mystic and the Haas, who's dropped back a little bit from Mero, as we've got a yellow in sector 3, and it's Stifler 1980 who's not enjoying it so far. It's kind of found a little bit tricky towards the start of this race, as we'll move back up into this battle as Game of the Best takes the lead from Joel. That must have been going into the first corner. So Game of the Best, in his return to Invictus, takes the lead on lap 6 from Joel, who's doing well, but it's Game of the Best in the Sauber, who will see if he can, well, we know how rapid he is. We'll see if he just drives away from Joel, or if Joel has got anything to do to come back at him. So we've moved back down as Mero's now fallen back into the clutches of Mystic behind him once again. As we'll go on board here with the Haas driver as he follows the Red Bull. Now he's 0.5 of a second behind Mero, but he's only got Tumas 0.5 of a second behind him, and Chilnillian 0.4 of a second, 0.5 now. So these guys here, it's all going to be a battle between who's going to, well, essentially who can keep it in the straight line the most. If you could, you've already seen Tumas losing places, Nicky losing places. This Haas looks like it's going to, yeah, so the Sauber looks like it got a better run coming out of turn 13 there. Now the slipstream doesn't look particularly strong at the moment, so whether that's the slipstream glitch with Betrayer leaving the session, or whether it's just because these guys here are running quite a grippy sort of setup as compared to the, or is the Haas getting well out of shape coming out of turn 16 there. That's going to allow both the Sauber and the McLaren going to go side by side going down the first corner as the Sauber looks inside, but it's Chill going to sweep around the outside of the Sauber. He does he keep the tie in? Does he keep the overtake going. The Sauber's going to come back at him going into turn 2. But Chill's going to have the inside for turn 3, and he does. Now, who gets the power down the best coming out of the turn? It looks like it might be Chill, who have absolutely superb move for air from Chill Nillian, going around the outside of Tumas 53. As Tumas comes back at him, takes the position back, but does he run out wide? He does. That allows Chill to come back at him again, but Tumas is going to have the inside for the next line. He doesn't. He tucks it behind the McLaren. He's going to run out wide. There's not an overtaking position there in the wet, really. So Tumas here, he's going to have to watch out. He doesn't want to get any damage getting too close to the back of Chill. So is it? Oh, the Haas running out to the curves there, kind of losing a little bit of grip. So a little bit of a wiggle on there for Mystic Man 22. And back up the top, it's Gamer to Best 262, who's already stretched out a 2.2 second lead now over Joel. Gamer setting the fastest lap of the race last lap, so we'll see if he sets another fast one. But Joel has made up 0.4 of a second on him, so Gamer may have made a little bit of a mistake coming out of that, or turn 13 there, so it has allowed Joel to come back at him. So we'll move back to Tumas, who is just really tucked up behind the back of that McLaren. It's the two slowest cars on the game. The guy's running a realistic performance tonight as Gamer sets the fastest lap with a 1:52.2. But it's the Sauber and the McLaren battling for 5th and 6th position. Now, one of the surprises maybe is that Nicky 9095, so the player or the driver in 3rd position in the championship so far, is sitting in 7th place, almost 5 seconds back from the guys battling for the podium position. So quite surprising. Nicky doesn't seem to be enjoying this wet race so far. Tumas getting a little bit out of shape there coming out of turn 3. As you see, locks up the brakes coming in to turn 4 and 5. Now the Sauber here, he's going to get a decent run on the McLaren, who seems to, both drivers seem to be kind of preferring different parts of the circuit. And it's Tumas that's sitting 0.6 of a second behind Chill Nillian in 5th place, so keeping quite a nice gap, as Mystic Man 22 is now only half a second behind Mero. So he's caught up to the back of Mero, who had a little respite for a couple of laps, but now coming under attack for his 3rd position from the Haas driver. It was the Haas drifting round turn 13 there. You can see the car almost sideways as he struggles to keep it in a straight line, as we got a yellow in sector 3, and it's Tumas 53 who's lost it coming out of turn 13, hit the barrier, and he's got significant front wing damage on the right hand side. So it's going to be a pit stop for Tumas 53 at the end of this lap, and that's allowed Nicky 9095 to move up into 6th place, and Chill Nillian now a free, or essentially it's. So we'll go on board here with Mystic chasing down the Red Bull of Mero D2. The closest battle we have on track at the moment, with 0.5 a second, just about bouncing around. Depends who gets a nice run. You can see a slightly drying line appearing on the circuit with the racing line, so the guys want to stick to that, sort of just about cool enough to keep the tyres in a nice working temperature, but without losing too much grip, because of course they do need a little bit of precipitation, a little bit of moisture to keep the tyre temperatures cool enough. Oh, as we see the Haas getting well out of shape there. Mystic doing, he's going to lose a bag of time here. It's going to allow Chill to close right up to the back of him. So Mystic got well out of shape there coming out of turn 7, I believe it was. And it's allowed Chill to move back in within 1.7 seconds as Mero once again ekes out his lead to 1.3. So Mero doing quite nicely to just maintain this position. He's, after dropping down from 2nd, he was running in 1st, but of course it's Joel and Gamer that are starting to make a break for it, up in 1st and 2nd, with Gamer stretching almost a 5-second lead over the Force India of Joel V520 at the moment. Yeah, so Tumas 53 did make a pit stop on that last lap. Has dropped down to 8th place. That's promoted Stifler 1980, who's had, as we see, Mystic make an early stop, move off of these intermediate tyres as he wants to keep it on. You want to keep it on the pit lane, off the grass. You don't want to get any unnecessary front wing damage there. As we'll see Mystic come in, most likely to set on another set of intermediates. And these guys here will be expecting, most likely, yeah, so another set of intermediates there. Most likely these guys will be doing a one stop, apart from the guys that have made early stops, which most likely they'll be running a 2. It would be absolutely mega if they could, especially players like Craig running his intermediates essentially 27 laps from lap 1 through to lap 28. So we're on board here with Nicky 9995. We do know that he can be a rapid driver on his day, but having a little bit of an off day today. He's 5.3 seconds behind Chill, and the fellow, or in the sister McLaren, who's slowly crawling up to the back of Mero D2's Red Bull. He's currently 2.4 seconds, and we'll see by the end of the lap if he's managed to increase, or if he's managed to decrease the gap and start to close up on the back of Mero's. It's already 2 seconds, so he's made up almost half a second through that sector there. So it's 2.4 seconds here. So roughly about the same at the moment. Seems to be that Mero had a slightly better run as Gamer sets another fastest lap with a 151.4, so there's no stopping the Sauber at the moment. He seems to be running away with this race so far, so as Mike says, it might be pretty much Gamer's race to lose at the moment. This will move on board here, with Mero D2, just going through turn 1 and into turn 2. Keeping it nice and slow, don't want to light up those rear tyres. Quite a tidy race for Mero so far. Pace hasn't been amazing, but nice and tidy, which is essentially in these conditions with running no assists, that's what you want from these guys. Consistency gets points and consistency wins prizes. So Mero, if he can keep it on the black stuff, as you see him there getting the power down a little bit too early, spinning up the rear tyres, and that will lose you a little, or maybe 1 or 2 tenths to Chill Nillian behind him, but Chill's dropped down to 3 seconds now, so Chill may have outbraked himself going into turn 1. We'll go back further down the grid, just see how some of the guys are doing. So we'll see Stifler 1980, who had a spin towards the end of the lap, I believe it was around lap 5, who had a spin just after the hairpin at turn 14. Down in 7th place as Craig unfortunately picks up a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. We'll definitely have to have a look at that after the race. It's quite an extensive penalty for track limit excursion there, so must have taken quite a wide line through one of the corners for that to be put in. Yeah, so as Mike says, it is frustrating to be on your own for an entire race, especially if it's not an incident that or that he caused at the start of the race. It was just an accident between him and Betrayer, as we see Craig struggling for grip coming out of turn 3 and 4 there. So yeah, Craig running round at the back as we've got a yellow in sector 2, and it's Tumas 53. He's lost control and he's lost the front right hand tyre. That's eliminated him from the race. Absolutely nightmare there for Tumas, who was running so well about 5 laps ago. Had the spin coming out of turn 14, lost a wing, has made an early stop. And unfortunately, that is curtains for the Sauber driver, who looks to have lost it. I'm trying to work out where he is on track. It looks like he might be around turn 7. So that's going to promote Craig up into 8th place. So these are still valuable points for the guys. So May only be one positions, but it's still points for Craig, who has really needed it as the season's gone on. It's Chill Nilly and we're on board, or we're watching here. He is 2.6 seconds behind Nicky in the other McLaren. Now we haven't seen any of the top guys make a stop so far, so coming up to halfway through the race, will they look to make a stop halfway through, make essentially a 50% style and running 50-50 on those tyres, of 14 laps either side? Or does someone go for the undercut and see if an undercut works on fresh intermediates? Of course, the rain's still falling, so there's no chance of this moving to a dry race anytime soon, so most likely the guys will all be moving on to another set of intermediates. So we see Chill there hammering that throttle coming out of the hairpin at turn 14, lighting up those rear tyres. Nice car control there to keep it in a straight line. Moving into turn 1 here. Want to keep it nice and tight going into turn 2, and he does. Now the rain in sector 1 seems to be easing off, and a dry line is appearing, but doesn't look, as you can see, the clouds still quite heavy, but there is blue sky appearing, so there is potential. I mean, just after I said that, it looks like everyone will be moving on to another set of intermediates. We'll see how this develops and see if a dry line starts to appear, because if it does slowly start to warm up and the race start to, or the conditions start to improve, there's still a lot of spray coming off the car, so definitely not anywhere near time for any sort of dry weather tyres. But if this rain does slow down, we could potentially see some of the guys, or Chill getting well out of shape coming out of turn 7 there. But we could potentially see, especially some of the guys at the back, they haven't really got anything to lose. Do they move on to a dry tyre and just try and undercut the rest of the grid and potentially see what it's like if a dry line does appear, what they can do on the dry tyres? We'll go watch Mera here, who's 2 seconds behind Joel now, so Joel must have made a mistake somewhere on that last lap, because Mero's caught right up to the back of the Force India, starting to close down heavily. So we'll just have a look here and we'll go on board with Joel to see if he's picked up any front wing damage. Now, doesn't look like it from here, so as you can see, the front left and front right still looking odd. So we'll move down, so 2.4 seconds for Mero behind, but must have made a mistake, Joel, there. It's allowed Mero right up to the back of him, and Mero now in quite a comfortable position in third place with Nicky, who's 7 or just over 7 seconds behind, and Chill behind him by just under 5 seconds. Ooh, just have a look here. So yeah, Mystic Man 22 is the first one to have made a stop out of the guys that came off of the intermediate tyre. Craig, of course, made that first stop on lap 1, so he will definitely definitely be looking to make another stop kind of later into the race. Or Mero there running a little bit too shallow into the last corner. Got a little bit out of shape there on the grass. Just about keeps it going. And he now is only just over 1.5 seconds behind on Joel. So Joel seems to be losing quite a bit of time at this stage in the race. So has Joel already used up the life of those intermediates? And do we see him dive into the pit lane anytime soon? And we do. So as I just said, Joel makes the move in as he sees Game up ahead, also making a pin to put on a new set of intermediates as the pit crew go to work, get in and out, as that releases Mero into the lead. So the guys here looking at going out. Mero on the overcut compared to the guys is yeah, so Gamer comes out in third position, so still with a nice gap ahead of Jill, and with Joel just coming out behind Mystic. So Jill and Mystic jumping Joel in the pits. That's not what Joel wants to see at all. He does want to see a slower car on older tyres in front of him. He's gonna want to jump this Haas as soon as possible. He's gonna have a lot more grip, but he doesn't want to make anything too rash or any brave moves. Does he look to the inside? He doesn't, or the Haas seems to be giving him a lot of space there. Does the Haas kind of relinquish the position knowing that Joel's got more space? No, they're going to go side by side coming into turn 7, and Joel gets the move done. So well done for Joel there. That's what he wanted to see. He needed to get that move done, and he's now going to start chasing after Chill. Still quite a long distance up the road from him. So it's Nicky 9095 who's now under attack from Gamer. So he's gonna, I don't think he's gonna have anything to say or anything to do about this. He's not gonna have a chance as Gamer breezes past the McLaren, gets it slowed down, and that is Gamer back up into second position and chasing down Mero D2 as Nicky dives into the pit lane. Mero's still out there on those intermediate tyres that he started on, so 16 laps so far on those intermediates. The problem for Mero is, though, is that Gamer the Best, who's already made a stop, is now only 4.5 seconds behind him. So Gamer with almost a full pit stops advantage on Mero, who's should be in effective third position, as Joel moves up into third position with the fact that Chill and Nicky are both in the pit lane, as Nicky comes out of the pit lane right in front of Stifler 1980. So Stifler there, he's going to be following the back of that McLaren once again as Chill comes out and enters onto the medium tyre. So it is Chill that's decided to take a massive gamble. It doesn't look like at the moment he's going to pay off, especially into these slower corners where he's going to have to get the power. You can see so tentative on the throttle. He's going to really struggle in these corners where you have to put the power down on the exit of the corner. It's fine if you're looking at putting the power down on a straight, but some of the corners around China you have to put it on a little bit early, and he's going to find on these medium tyres it doesn't quite look dry enough yet. So maybe a lap or two too early for Chill Nillian. And is that what Mero's doing? Is Mero trying to stay out there on these intermediates and hope that it comes dry? Because as you can see, the rain has stopped falling. So I would be interested to hear your comments. Do you think that is Mero gonna try and stay out until his tyres essentially give up on him and he can move on to the dries? It doesn't look like it's dry anytime soon. Still a lot of spray coming off the back of that Haas. But we'll see here as Mero does come into the pit at the end of this lap, releases Gamer back up into first position with essentially he has a full pit stop's worth of time over Mero. So that's going to put Joel back up into second position as well. This will go on board here with Joel, who does take second position back from Mero. As Joel on the intermediates. So we'll look here as Craig retires from the session. So it's in the pit lane. So unfortunately for Craig, retires in the pit lane. So even with points on the board, strange. Craig, his team pit him for super soft tyres and send him out. As Mero D2 also goes for the dry tyres, comes out on a super soft. So another strange decision. Doesn't quite look dry enough. So these guys thinking they're going to have a go. It's yellow in sector 1. I think that might be for Craig. Yeah, it looks like it's for Craig. We've still got a yellow in sector 1. But Mero, you can see he's really struggling out there on those dry tyres. So Mero and Chill both out there. We've got yellow in Sector 1 and Sector 2. I believe that might be for Craig's car that may have stopped off on track after he retired in the pit lane. But a strategy decision from Mero in the Red Bull and Chilnillian in the McLaren there to move on to dry tyres, perhaps a little bit too early. It seems a very strange decision from Mero, who was running in a strong third position, that he would move on to the super softs, because what he will be doing on the super softs, even though the tyres won't be overheating in the wet conditions, is that he'll be spinning up the tyres so much coming out of some of these corners, he's just going to take the life out of them. So Chill probably took, with the dry option, took the better option of moving on to the mediums, but Mero is going to have to, as you see him there, just really feathering that throttle coming out of turn 14 as he enters turn 16 here. So will Mero live to regret that decision of moving on to the dry tyres? The rain has stopped, but just, yeah, so there's still quite a bit of spray coming off the rear end of that Red Bull, so you have to think that it might be a little bit premature for them to think that they could move on to the dry tyres. Now what that has done is promoted Mystic Man 22 back up into third position. So Mystic, who started well and then started falling back to after the slight spin that he had earlier in the race, has moved back up to third place, and Nicky will be glad to see Chilnillian in 7th position and Betrayer out of the race, because what that does mean is that brings him right back into play when it comes to the race, into the championship standings, because it does mean that Nicky will pick up valuable points as Gamer sets another fastest lap with 150.5. So Gamer absolutely annihilating the field in this race so far. So with just under 10 laps to go, with a 20-second lead over Joel, who's not a slow driver in the slightest. So the guys will be, as we have a yellow in Sector 3. Who's that for? It must be for Mero. It looks like it might be for Mero, who's just entering Sector 3 now. So yeah, you can hear it. Or is Mero's going to lose it? Is he going to keep it out of the wall? Just about. So does Mero come back in and put in another set of intermediates? It's tricky there for Mero, so might have driven himself out of a podium position, which he desperately wanted after a couple of poor results in the last few races. But yeah, as I was saying, Nicky will be rubbing his hands together at the thought of Chill running around in medium tyres on a wet track and Betrayer retiring before the first corner. And with Stifler sitting behind him, that's his 3 main rivals for the championship, or falling back on points and not finishing ahead of him. So the race will well and truly be back on for the number 1 position in the title as we move on to the week or the season break, and then Canada in 2 weeks' time. There's Nicky here, right up to the back of Mystic for 3rd position. It's going to be well in the toe of the Haas coming down the long straight, but the Haas will have, in that Ferrari powered car, will have slightly more drive than the Honda powered McLaren. You can see that Nicky much more comfortable on the brakes coming into the hairpin compared to the Haas. Does get a little bit twitchy coming out of turn 14. We'll see what the run is coming out of turn 16 onto the start finish line. The gap is 0.6 of a second. Now blue skies are starting to appear in the sky, so as you can see, there's still quite a bit of spray being kicked up from the back of these cars, but it is slowly starting to look like a dry line is forming there. You can see the darker lines of the tarmac And the asphalt here quite soft, so leads itself to nice running if you're on dry tyres. It's not a particularly aggressive asphalt used on the surface here, so as long as, especially Chilnillian, as long as he's kind of looked after those mediums, as soon as it starts to turn to dry running, if it does in the next 8 laps, that I think you should expect him to start setting some faster times. As he's now climbed right up to the back of Mero, and he's now only 2.3 seconds behind Mero. But he's on the medium tyres, which, like I said before, do work nicer in the colder conditions. They get up to working temperature a lot quicker. As Nicky once again climbs right up to the back of that Haas, and he's going to get a nice run coming out of turn 13. And he's much better tucked in behind him this time, but Gamer once again setting another fastest lap, so in a competition on his own at the moment with a 23-second lead. As you can see, that Haas just a little bit more power on the straight, and Nicky can't really do anything about it at the moment. Does cut the hairpin a little bit there, so we'll have to look out for penalties. The guys have done very well so far on penalties. It's not a track that leans itself to picking up too many penalties, as you can't cut it too many places. It's more extending and taking liberties with the limits of the circuit on the outside on runoff areas. Now we'll stay with Nicky 9095 and Mystic, as it's the closest battle on the track at the moment. We'll keep an eye on the guys running on the dries at the back, and that's Mero D2 on the Super Softs and Chill, who are going to find themselves coming under attack from being lapped soon. So with being Mero being 1 minute 10 seconds down, it won't be too long before Gamer starts to crawl up to the back of the rear end of Chilnillian, who's now only 0.7 of a second behind Mero. So Mero must have made a mistake there, as you see him making, is he can run onto the grass again. That's if Chill's going to get a much better run on Mero. And Mero running onto the wetter side of the circuit, so on the super soft tyres, going onto the off of the dry line and onto the wetter side, so he's going to struggle to get the car stopped here. He's going to have to be really tentative coming into the hairpin, as he is. Chill's going to take the inside line now. Who gets better grip coming out of turn 14? It's got both of them wiggling around. It's Chill who's going to try and run around the outside though, but does Chill run into the pit lane? He does come into the pit lane, so does Chill decide he's going to move back onto intermediates? Is the experiment of running on dry tyres worked or not? So we'll go back on board as Mystic and Nicky battle over the podium positions. In third is Mystic, maintains third only just to Nicky, who had a great run, made that move as Mystic makes a pit stop. Now does Mystic move on to dries? Is he going to make the mistake of what Chill and Mero did, or is Mystic... I've just checked if he had actually made a stop. He has made a stop, so... But of course it was earlier, so he is moving on to the dry tyre. So Mystic, with a very brave strategy decision there to come out onto the super on Zero, struggled. But the guys... It's very, very hard. You can still see a lot of spray coming up, so... Mystic will slowly start to realise that, well, not even slowly start to realise, very rapidly realise that it will take an absolute age for him to get those tyres up to temperature and get some grip into them, whilst the guys on the intermediates are still within a decent working level. So it's Mero, as you see there, Mero D2 on the super soft, running very wide, coming as he almost gets clipped by the guys coming around to lap him. So Mero running very wide, coming out of turn 13, as he does find himself getting lapped. Stifler also moving onto the dry tyres. So the guys here, do they think they've got a 5 lap window where they can run dries to the end? And do we see anyone. We don't see much spray being kicked up the back at the moment, so is this now the time where dry tyres will slowly start to come into their own? But as I say that, Stifner 1980 trying to prove me wrong. The Mero D2 comes into the pit lane. Does he put a new set of dry tyres on and try and at it, or does, as Jill Nillian did, does he move back onto intermediates? And so he does. So both Chill and Mero made the brave choice earlier in the race. Both of them were running higher up. Mero in third position. Both made the decision to come off of... Oh, so Mero does... Oh, it looked like he put intermediates on. It flashed up intermediates, but he's gone back to super soft. So Mero putting another set of super softs on. So potentially got front wing damage while he came on. So we've got a yellow in sector 1. Maybe for Mero driving slowly to let some of the guys past us. Yeah, so yeah, as you were right, Mike, Nicky is slowly starting to hunt down Joel in second position. Now, as you can see there, it's the guys running in on the intermediates at the moment that are they're not going to get battled from the guys that are trying to make a slight strategy alteration and move on to the dry tyres. But as you can see there, dry line forming quite nicely on the racing line, so looking quite slick offline, but the racing line slowly turning darker. But I don't think you'll see any of the guys unless they're absolutely sure, as Joel runs into a little bit of patch of moisture to kind of keep those tyres a nice working temperature so they don't overheat. I don't think you'll see the guys with 4 laps left to go. Is it worth them coming in and trying to set or to put on some dry tyres? Or I mean, Gamer's got such a large lead that he probably could make an unaided or a unattacked stop and come and make it completely cleanly and come back out. But does he want to risk putting dry tyres on and potentially making a mistake somewhere around the lap? Because we've got a yellow in sector 3, and it's Mero D2 who put the super soft tyres on. He's lost front wing again, coming on to this, actually towards the braking zone into turn 14, so very far on down the straight. So strange action there for Mero. He's going to have to watch out because he's got the Sauber going past him, as that's the race leader himself who laps Mero, I believe, potentially for the second time. Well, you see Mero back there still struggling to get the power down on those super soft tyres. So Mero be kicking himself that he's thrown away a podium at the least. He could have thrown away a podium and gifted it to Nicky 9095, who's now still within 6.5 seconds of Joel. And it's Chill who's staying with his McLaren teammate, but unfortunately, being a lap down, there's not much he's going to do about it. He can't really overtake Nicky at this point. We'll go on board with the leader. We haven't seen much of Gamer at all this race. He's, apart from early in the session where he was making his way through the pack, from moving up from, I believe it was 3rd or 4th position. It was 3rd position. So Gamer the best, as you can see there, moving up 2 positions from 3rd to 1st, and Joel's moved up 2 positions from 4th to 2nd. Nicky moving up from 6th to 3rd. Mystic started on pole position, currently running in 4th. Stifler's moved from 7th to 5th, and Chill's moved from 8th to 6th. Mero is the one who's lost out the most. Started 2nd after setting a pretty decent time in qualifying, but unfortunately made the wrong decision when it comes to strategy. Moved on to the dry tyres far too early, and he's now down in 7th position. As you see there, Gamer lapping Stifler, I believe it was. It was Stifler 1980 gets lapped by Gamer, so Gamer now on the charge to essentially finish up this race in control, well ahead of everyone else. He's going to have around 30-second lead, so I believe the guy waving the flag at the end of the race will have a time to have a cup of tea in between when he waves it for Gamer and when he waves it for Joel. Good evening, Fasco. Nice to have you in the chat tonight. Hope you've enjoyed the race, if you've seen much of it. And as you see, it's guys are still pretty spread out here. The closest person on track is Nicky, who's 5.5 seconds behind Joel, but with 2 laps left to go, you'd like to think that Joel will keep that lead. It doesn't seem, unless he makes a mistake further on into the lap, as you can see there, the gap between the leaders. So Joel 29.2 seconds behind Gamer, Nicky 34 seconds behind him, and then the last person on the lead lap at the moment is Mystic with a 1.5 second gap between himself. So you can see how far Gamer is ahead, is that he's almost lapped up to 4th position. Lapped Mero twice, who struggled with the dry tyres, but it's going to be a depressing entry into the Red Bull garage. For Mero will be gutted after throwing away that 3rd position. So here came getting nicely slowed down. You can see that it definitely does look like dry tyres could work here. So I think that you'll see Gamer sort of running as DRS does get enabled. So dry conditions are the more favourable one now, but with 2 laps left to go, I think you'll find Gamer running onto the wetter parts of the track and maybe running offline every now and then just to keep the tyre temperatures down a little bit. He has got the time to make the stop, but with 1 lap left to go, you'd like to think that he could try. As you see him there, he does take a tighter line coming out of the corner, running onto the damper part of the track, just to kick up a little bit of spray, get a little bit of moisture into the tyres, keep the temperatures down, keep the temperature in the brakes down. There's Joel here on the intermediates, and he's still being followed by Nicky and the McLaren, also on the intermediates. There's Mystic, who's out there on the super soft. So the guys from 4th to 7th, or 4th to 7th, have all tried the dry tyres, but currently Stifler and Chill moved back on to the intermediate tyres. So it would be impressive for them to try and catch up. There's no way of. I think you can see everyone's finishing positions as they are at the moment. So, well, Mike says it would be sad to see if Gamer got a puncture. That is true, but we have seen it that in the last race of last season, Gamer, who won the race at Silverstone, actually picked up a puncture on the last lap of the race in the start to the 2nd sector, around Maggots and Beckett's, and came out of Chapel with a severely delaminated and deflated tyre and had to crawl round the final sector of the lap and just about cross the line to take the win. So with 1 lap left to go after this, or after Gamer crosses the line, so he starts his final lap now, and his last tour around this 5.41 kilometre circuit. Just 16, well, now 15 and a half corners to go for Gamer the Best on his return to the Invictus Racing League No Assist Championship after his timeout. So the guys will know that the man to beat is back on track, and he's back at the top of the podium, or top of the rostrum. Will be picking up the 12 points for 1st position. As you can see him there, just slowly letting himself around, so not overdoing it, not pushing it. He knows that these intermediate tyres aren't in the right condition now. They're not. It's not the tyre that you'd want to be on. Seeing as DRS has been enabled, the guys on the super softs will actually be enjoying it more. As we go back there, Joel pits for dry tyres on the last lap of the race, moving him down from second to third. So, and then cuts the pit lane exit. And just about keeps it in a straight line going around turn 1, 2 and cuts turn 3. So very strange decision there from Joel, who had second place sewn up, but has gifted it to Nicky on the final lap of the race, just so that he could set a lap on the super softs. Your guess is as good as mine, guys. I'd love to hear from Joel about his decision there, but it's going to give Nicky a very unexpected second position as Game of the Best crosses the line, finishes the race, and he's going to be an absolute age ahead of Nicky, who's only just starting to come down the final straight now, who's going to take a well unexpected second place. As you see the guys there trying to unlap themselves, but I don't think it's going to happen. Nicky's going to slowly come across the line in the intermediates. As he does, as Nicky picks up a penalty on the last corner of the race, but takes second position. As Joel, who, unless he picked up severe wing damage that we didn't pick up and had to come into a pit, you can't imagine why he would make that stop with one lap to go, make that choice to come in and drop from second to third, as Joel crosses the line and takes third position. And a very, very strange end to this Chinese Grand Prix, as Mystic Man 22 is going to finish, the last person to finish on the lead lap, as Stifler 1980, Chill Nilliant and Mero D2 have already crossed the line to finish in 5th, 6th and 7th. It's going to be Mystic to come or takes turn 16 and will cross the line a minute and a half down, but on the lead lap in 4th position. So a very interesting race there from the guys. From the off, we lost Betrayer before the first corner. Craig caught up in that accident there. We'll have to find out what happened from the guys, but a nightmare there for Betrayer in his hunt for the title, and equally Craig will be gutted that those two got caught up in that accident. What do you say about the end of the race? Joel deciding to set a lap on the supers and moving Nicky up into second place, which you would think with one of your title ambition, or if you've got a title ambition, you'd want to keep them as far away as possible. So there's your results for today, with Gamer picking up first, Nicky in second, with Joel picking up third, Mystic picked up fourth, with Stifler, Chill and Mero in 5th, 6th and 7th, and the guys that didn't finish start were Craig, Betrayer, and as you see, sorry, we'll just quickly go through the penalties there. So a very strange race, but very an absolutely dominating one for Gamer. So Gamer the Best picks up the win with an absolutely electric display from him in the Sauber to pick up his first race win in the season. So picked up a second in Brazil, picks up his first race win in the season. So well done to Gamer, puts himself back in position to start challenging towards the second half of the season as we enter the season break next week. So no race next week, guys. We will be on a break, and then we will be back in Montreal in Canada for race 7 of the Invictus No Assist League Championship the week after that. So thank you very much for joining me tonight. I've been Captain Stiff. It's been a pleasure having you in the comments. It's good to see you all talking and getting involved. Please, if you want to get involved with Invictus, you can sign up to our website at invictusracingleagues.com. Our socials are InvictusRL, that's on Twitter. And please feel free to speak to the admins, and we can get you involved with a practice race and see what league you'd be most interested in. It's always good to get new members in, and we've always, if you can like and or share the league and post it around your socials, that's always good to get us as much exposure as possible. Equally, if you want to go on our website, we do have a website store that you can support us in any way that you can. So if you'd like to go on the store and purchase any branded IRL stuff or any customized stuff for yourselves or any of your friends, then feel free. We're more than happy to have any sort of donations, whether it be monetary or just follows and likes on our socials. But as I said before, with a season break next week, we look to Canada the week after that, and we move on to Montreal with another 2 very quick straights towards the end of the lap that always open up the track for a lot of overtaking and a lot of action. But for tonight, my name has been Captain Stiff, and I have been with you, and it's been wonderful. But thank you very much, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time for Canada. Good night.